Hi, friends. Tessa Timberlake here with Soulful Conversations, exploring our inner light with Kristen Gibowicz, one of my teachers, mentors. She's the founder of Living Soul Institute, a teacher training program. And we dive into her journey through the integration of yoga. And we talk about chronic pain and how she overcame that. It's a compelling story. We also discuss the challenges faced by yoga teachers, the importance of yoga teacher training programs, and the integration of faith through yoga. She emphasizes the need for revitalization and teaching practices and the creation of safe spaces for individuals of diverse beliefs. Kristin also explores the Enneagram. She has a really cool certification in this. And so this is particularly cool part of this discussion. And of course, we get the book recommendations and her superpower. So thank you, as always, for listening to these podcasts. Enjoy, Kristin.
Hi, friends. Tessa Timberlake here with Soulful Conversations, exploring our inner light with my good friend, Kristen Gibowicz. Kristin was one of 6 holy yoga teachers that walked with me through my first yoga teacher training. She has since guided me through answering various questions of me creating my own teacher trainings. And I experienced a yoga continuing ed teacher tune-up retreat held in the beautiful mountains of Colorado a few years back through her Institute of Living Soul. So here is Kristen Gibowicz. Kristin, welcome to Soulful Conversations. Thank you so much for being here. Please tell us a little bit about what you do and why you do it.
Yeah. Hi. And I love the name Soulful Conversations. It ties in beautifully with what I get to do. I am the founder and lead trainer of Living Soul Institute. And we started this teacher training. It was a 200-hour Christ-centered teacher training in the beginning of 2020. And 5 people in my basement, maybe 6. And the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden we went online, and what I imagined was very different, but God always knows, and it's always more than we could ask for or imagine. And so now we lead trainings online, and we've touched people in Belgium and Germany and Canada and places all over the world. And we also offer in-person trainings and retreats. And we are really so much more than the yoga. That's what we like to say. It's more than just the yoga. It's so much more of holistic development and spiritual formation. And it's incredible. It's been a beautiful journey. So,
Kristin, I appreciate your yes to this, right? You beckoned it, you felt it, and as Sue Bidstrup would say, clarity, action makes clarity, and so you took action, and you said yes, and now look at all this beautiful work that's being done through souls all around the world. It's just amazing. Thank you for that. So your spiritual journey, if you don't mind sharing with us, how you came to yoga.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the church. My grandfather was a Presbyterian minister and was a young life leader in college and all those things. And in my early 20s, I had 2 herniated discs and needed a back surgery. And so the surgeon thought I would bounce back quickly because I was very athletic and outdoorsy and all those things. And I didn't. Subsequent scar tissue and a sedentary lifestyle, sitting behind a desk in my first job, and probably all of the changes in my own life emotionally. I just had gotten married, left the nest of my home, and moved across the country, and so much had shifted. And I remember going into a Bible study and sitting there and feeling like I was completely alone. And I remember saying to somebody, is somebody going to get real around here?
Mm.
Because I was probably in a pretty dark, depressive season of my life. I didn't have language for any of that. But I was in a moment where I was pretty angry at God and in that question of why me, in so much pain. And so we had had our first daughter that still dealt with back stuff for about 5 years post surgery. Had my first daughter and had even more issues after the birth, and went into a second doctor's appointment who recommended a second surgery. And I remember reading an article about yoga, and I was driving back to work from that appointment, and there was a sign outside 12th and Grant in downtown Denver, and it said free yoga.
Mm.
And I pulled over, didn't go back to work that day, pulled over and went into a hot, sweaty yoga studio, which is now known as Core Power Yoga,
Yes.
and experienced my first class that I cried through, and really heard the whispers of God in a secular yoga class more than I had in that church setting. And it was just a new invitation, really, for me to take a look at the whole of my life and to surrender it.
That is
So,
amazing. I know I've heard that story, but we forget each other's stories, right? We, and I remember some stories that you told us, as you were teaching our yoga 200 hour in probably the same chair and same spot that you're in right now, which is so amazing for me. It's like so sweet, but I don't remember the weight of that story. So thank you again for sharing that personal story. Wow. Um, Biggest challenge in that journey?
mm, yeah, probably to cease striving, to to kind of dig into some shame patterns that I had experienced for a long time. And I really do think now in retrospect, it was a lot of generational stuff that I have healed from. Um, but yoga really taught me more about God's grace, more about listening to my body, more about allowing time for life integration, um, more about being than doing. And that was that was a really difficult unraveling. I realize now, after all the years of study, I mean, that was 23 years ago. So that pain is a biopsychosocial spiritual thing. And it's not isolated in just the pain in your back. It was really a bigger picture thing. And I'm so grateful for the study of yoga and for the study of a yogic lifestyle that has illuminated my faith life, that has really helped me integrate how to walk the walk as a follower of Christ. And so I think God can use anything, right? If God used a yoga mat for me to return, I believe that He can really use anything.
When I was writing this question, I thought she's going to answer this question before I ask her. And you did. How did yoga contribute to your healing?
Mm.
And she totally did. Spiritual, physical, and emotional. Same thing. I think us yogis that have a Christian background, have a spiritual background with God, He meets you there, because yoga is just a modality. It's just a way of life. It's not anything else. And so when you're on that mat and you're doing something that's hard, He meets you there. And I will never forget when I was at the Holy Yoga retreat, and it was the last class, and we were about to load the buses, and I was crying, and Let It Happen was playing by United Pursuit, and I'd never heard of United Pursuit. So, and he just spoke to me, and he was like, "You don't have to see me on the cross. Like, I'm not on the cross. Like, stop." Like, he broke such a barrier with me right then and there. And you never forget those moments. Never. They stay with you for the rest of your life.
You're
And
full of
so,
life now. You're full of
yes,
passion. It's how he made you. Yeah,
yes,
what happened? I remember the words just came back as you were saying that.
yes, yes. I was obsessed with that group and I'm still obsessed with all of them. I follow all of them on Instagram, and um, they're such beautiful, authentic people. United Pursuit, if you ever listen to this, I am a big, big, big fan. Um, so a pivotal moment when the Lord affirmed your journey, an intersection of your heart and mind.
Oh, there have been so many because I do most things pretty afraid, if we're real honest around here, So it always takes those pivotal moments where it's just undeniable that he's gone before me, in all of that. But I remember this moment, actually, it was at a holy yoga retreat. And I was asked to teach the large group. And I was pretty terrified, not because I wasn't an experienced teacher. I mean, I was well versed in how to lead a slow flow class, but I remember I didn't sleep the night before, and I literally got up and went to the bathroom and was on my knees, and I said, I'm so afraid that they're going to see right through me, because I have taught yoga out of my own gifting and musicality and just experience for so many years, that these people are so precious in the way that they are pursuing you, and they'll see right through me if I don't wholeheartedly show up to serve you and to make this, to point to your purposes, not me being a gifted yoga teacher. And I don't remember much in that in that class. I know I shared one of my first experiences of a verse I heard in a secular class from the Upanishads that said, "Lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality, shanti, shanti," which means peace. And I remember thinking, lead me from the unreal to the real, right? Like, what is the big T truth?
You
What,
brought the big
show
T.
me a fresh perspective. Your way is higher than our ways. And from darkness to light, like, let my story, use my story to speak to somebody else's story, to give them hope, to bring light. And then from death to immortality, it really was about just living a resurrected life. Like, bring me to my knees to remember that first time I experienced your grace, God, what you did for me, Jesus. And then, and that's really the impetus of Living Soul in so many ways, is to walk out this abundant life with the story you've been given, with the hand you've been given. Right. So anyway, I shared that. I don't remember any of the class, but somebody came up to me later and said, "I just want to thank you that I just experienced what holy yoga is." And I was like, "Oh, you've never taken a class before?" And they said, "No, you don't understand. Like, I had a set apart experience within your class." And I wept, it really touched me. So, yeah. And I just long for those days to teach a class where I don't remember much of it, and you just kind of feel like your eyes are locked with the Lord. And there's just something really fluid and special about it. Yeah.
It's very special to be able to be a part, to be used as a vessel. And I was just thinking when I was at the retreat while you were talking, this moment where, I can't hear. And I will probably always struggle because I'm human. But when you can't hear and when you want so much to be a part of the conversation, and when people are speaking and they're not thinking about, they're just caught up in their moment and they're courageously speaking, and it's beautiful to share, but you want to hear what they're saying, right? And you can't. And when enough of that happens, the wall starts coming up. And I had that moment and I left and I finished some training that I was doing because, I was in the doing, and not the being part of my life in 2020. And I'll never forget that moment because the Lord was like, that night I had dinner with the two roommates that are now my friends online and some other people. And they really encouraged me and they held me and they cried with me. And they were like, if he wants you to hear it, you're going to hear it. Like just be. And the words are comforting. They're lovely. But until you're there, which I wasn't, they're just comforting, right? But now when you really understand the grace and when you're not the victim, when you're not the person inside crying, what happened to me or all of the things, right? The things that we go through, when we're not that person anymore, when God has healed that and you just want to be a vessel, the honoring of being able to be that vessel is just, there aren't our words, right? And so, yes, to all the classes that we don't remember and that he speaks to those hearts. It's, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Living soul. Let's talk about living soul. So my appreciation and absolute honest of your creation of Living Soul Institute is its structure. Your focus on the yoking of yoga through Christ as the foundation is refreshing. The verse, Matthew 11:28, being the rock, it's my favorite. And so lead us through your structure and why and how you do what you do at Living Soul, specifically how I see it. And I'm sure you're going to tell us differently, which is great. But I like how you have it for everyone, like just every day, Shelly and Joe, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have it for us seasoned teachers that have been pouring our hearts and souls out, and we just need a breather. And then the people that are so excited about becoming a yoga teacher and not they're in their season of like, I can't get enough education, right? So lead us through that.
Yeah. Well, when I think of Matthew 11:28, I think of come to me all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. And I think so many people show up, whether it's a retreat or to teacher training, and we don't even realize all the ways in which we are heavy and burdened. Like you just said it in your story of victimhood of being hearing impaired, right? Like it's a posture and it's a wall in which we don't get to experience the fullness of God's love and hope and grace and all these things that we want so desperately. And so it's just the invitation first, Living Soul, to come, to show up and be as you are. The verse is Genesis, Genesis 2:7.
2:7, yeah.
Yeah, God breathed into the nostrils of man, and man became a living soul. And really, isn't that the experience when we're coming from darkness to light, when we're coming from the wreckage through the healing process? It really is God breathed into the nostrils. And so I think it's so beautiful too that it's nostrils, because recent science has really focused on nasal breathing being so much more powerful and we are designed that way, And so the beautiful yoking and accepting Jesus's easy yoke is as simple as breathing. It's as simple as breathing. And when we slow down and bring the heavy and burdened, and we start to breathe, we start to experience the withness of God, the movement of the Holy Spirit, the release of the unreal. And I love that image of I'm exhaling, and I'm inhaling God's exhale, and I'm exhaling God's inhale. As I exhale, God inhales. And so it's this reciprocal, cyclical experience of intimacy. And it begins with the one thing that differentiates yoga from any other modality, and that is the breath. And it's that simple. And so, I think that Living Soul Institute is really to look at the threads of your story, the whole story. And where we say it's so much more than just the yoga is it's about slowing down long enough to hear the whisper of God through the breath. It's about moving the body to recognize that we all have trauma in the tissues, and that emotions are real and they should be honored. It's how we're designed. And yoga allows us to do that, to be emotional beings, to bring it all to the mat. And that we have the ability to get stronger, not only physically in the body, but just with our staying power. And so much of life in the darker seasons are about developing resilience and staying power, and because of the witness of God in those times. And so, I love that we call it Living Soul, because it reminds me often when I look at the name that it's about elevating and uplifting and living a life of faith, hope, and love. And it's easy in a world that's so divided to get stuck in cynicism and to get stuck in anxiety and all those things. And so Living Soul just means I'm going to reach for something greater. So
Staying power. That rivets through me. It's still vibrating through my tissues. I can appreciate those words, staying power. And friends, I'm expecting like all of the physical structure, and exactly, she did it completely different, and I love that she did it so sweetly. Wow, thank you so much, Kristin. The on-demand and library classes that you create, are they tell us about the levels?
Yeah. So I would say, something that we talk about in teacher training is finding your teacher voice, right? And so while I can teach now, after many years of teaching all the styles of yoga, really, I teach anything from yoga with weights to yin and restorative. But I would say my classes and what my niche is more of an inspirational style of teaching. And so I love what we call soul flow. And it does cultivate, we have a little bit longer holds than a typical vinyasa. It's worship filled, but it's very much an experience with the breath, and learning that yoga can help us really elongate and experience the depth of breathing, because the slower we breathe, obviously, it helps regulate the nervous system. So you can experience a powerful asana driven class while still kind of down regulating from that kind of low grade stress place that we're living in. So there's a lot of soul flow with Kristin, I'll tell you. But now we've added yin classes, restorative. We have chair yoga. We're adding some of our 300-hour graduates. We have both the 200-hour and 300-hour Yoga Alliance accredited program. And so now some of our 300-hour graduates are contributing. And really, that's what feels most authentic to me. I've never really liked this idea of the Kristin show when it comes to living soul. What I envision is just the bigger picture and the bigger web of the church, really. So I hope that continues to grow. That's really a desire of mine in this next year, especially in the on-demand. But right now we have about 250 classes. We do live streams that are free. I try to really create an opportunity for people who don't have the funds for yoga. So you can take it free in the live stream. You can pay a very small fee for the on-demand classes, and then all the way up through teacher trainings, which is a bigger investment.
That is amazing. I'm sure that I'm not informed, but I have yet to see with my own eyes yoga teacher training that has 200-hour, 300-hour. You can take the 500-hour just at one time and become a master yoga teacher trainer at one time. And then also have teacher tune-ups, and then also provide live stream classes and bring those people that just finished teaching, right? And allow them to create their own do it afraid in their own perspective, fresh off the heels of learning and discovery, because those people are so full of fire, right? Yeah. They're so full of fire, and they should be, right? They should be. And it's beautiful to see. So this is my favorite. I do want to share one little story that I remembered while Kristin was teaching. And so it was the first night of flying into Colorado, and I jet lag and just all the 10,000 feet of elevation, right? Being in the mountains. And we had to go down about 30 something steps, and the first class was a lighter version of vinyasa. It was on basketball courts, and it was beautiful. Speaker sound system was right in front. I could hear her and I could hear the music, which was amazing. But let me tell you, it was hard, and it was hard for me because I had recently been in a car accident, and so I was still bringing back my chaturanga and some other my upper arm strength, and so it was challenging. I felt unhealthy. I didn't feel very good going down. I didn't want to do the class, but I'm like, I need to do the class, right? I felt so invigorated after that class. I don't know what she did. I don't know if it was the air. I don't know if it was God, but I felt so much better after that class. It's amazing what yoga does for you. And for your body when you're not feeling so well, and obviously in your mind and your spirit, right?
So. Well, that was a very special retreat. We called it the Breathe Retreat, and we were coming out of COVID, but if you remember, there was a spike in COVID, and so I was so concerned that had we come back too early, right? But at that retreat, we focused on Psalm 23, and in the Message translation, it says, "True to your word, you let me catch my breath and send me on the right path." And it was just a weekend of just experiencing all that had come up in that isolation of that pandemic season in all of our lives, all that really rose to the surface in our relationships, in our family dysfunction, in all these aspects of our lives. And I feel like the women there could have shared their lives forever. Somebody came up to me in the hallway and said, what is different about this retreat? I've been to church retreats, I've been to all these different things. And I said, we get in our bodies. And I think that is so true. We get in our bodies. And the experience of lament, or the experience of all these things, because you are feeling it to the depths of the cells in your body, it's profound. So yeah, I remember you there. I remember the altitude sickness for many people. It's hard to be a Coloradoan and remember that, the sea level people might be struggling. Yeah.
Yes. Tell the listeners about the teacher tune-up and the teacher toolkit, which I love. It's my favorite.
Yeah, awesome. My heart, Tessa, has always been the yoga teacher. And I think it's because I started leading teacher trainings with Core Power Yoga in 2008. I was a manager of a yoga studio. I was always leading mentorship for new teachers. And I know how scary it is to teach to your peers. I know how scary it is to take something you love and hope that you're sharing in a way that people are going to experience it the same way you have. And so what has frustrated me is when teacher trainings are just kind of top down, a lot of information. Because what I found, and what was the impetus of the teacher tune-up, was that people would go home from a teacher training and disqualify themselves and never teach yoga. And it killed me. So I literally went on a nationwide tour. I went to like 6 cities. It's not that fancy, but in 2019, and we created workshops that were, how do I get the boots on the ground? How do we multiply the light workers? And how do we help people feel equipped and give them the next step to start teaching in their communities? And so it's all about sequencing for student success and up-leveling your cueing so you can be a better public speaker, illuminating the practice through props and normalizing props, hands-on enhancements. Like, these are all things. And then just basic things like, what's your why? When we recognize what is before us, and God always shows us, like, who are the people? And sometimes it's our family and taking a season off teaching, but who are the people right before me? And that's what Living Soul does so well. We don't isolate teaching yoga to a yoga studio or even a church. It's like we go to the schools. We go into the safe houses with women who've been trafficked. We go into the hospitals and teach chair yoga to people who are cancer survivors or whatever. I mean, the breadth of how you can use breath, movement, meditation to bring the love of God to the world is unending. So that's really what the teacher tune-up is. It's for either the person who, like me, had never done the Christ-centered yoga, or the person who went home from a teacher training and decided they weren't good enough and never taught, or the person who's just in the funk of, I'm sick of myself. I think I've taught everything in the world. I need some new tools. And so and we're doing a lot in 2025. It's on our website, the cities that we're going to. But then the toolkit is the next thing. I know what it feels like to be a burned out yoga teacher with great intentions, but just lost my luster. And usually it's an invitation for rest for the yoga teacher too, take a little time off. But the teacher toolkit is a 4-week done for you class plans. And this includes, I always believe in teaching a series. So people just want to go deeper. And it's a great excuse to invite people back to next week, just like a pastor does a sermon series, right? And so the toolkit has, scripture, reflection questions, Spotify playlists, but we also adapt it for all the people who are teaching in secular environments, because That's really important. That's been most of my story as a yoga teacher. And the Holy Spirit goes with me, and so how do I create a safe place for seekers to experience themselves, to experience stillness, to experience wholeness? And I know that God is working in their lives too. And so we have quotes and ways in which you can adapt the 4 weeks of a series. And it's also like how to progress 4 weeks of classes. So you have a blueprint soul flow class, and then you progress it each week with different variations. For teachers, it's like, oh, I forgot about that variation, where you can hook your thumbs and fan your fingers and, side bend here, things that we get sick of ourselves. So if you're sick of yourself, get the teacher toolkit. It's great.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Friends, that is amazing. If you're a yoga teacher, yeah, I'd be getting that. I am forever looking on Instagram of shorts of, just different various ways of how people sequence things, right? Yeah. And I'm always blown away. Sometimes I'm not, and sometimes I am. I'm like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way. So yeah, Tiffany Crawshank is one of my favorite people to watch.
She's great.
And you, of course. All my yoga teachers, of course, that taught me once.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining all of that. So tell us about the 200 hour, and the way you word it speaks volumes to me. I love it. 200 hour foundation program, and then a 300 hour yoga leaders program. I love that. So give us the skinny.
When I think about, so I offer discovery calls, and I'll tell you, each discovery call is like, hi, Kristin, I shouldn't be here, but I'm calling anyway. It's this immediate disqualification of, I haven't practiced enough yoga, therefore I should not be teaching it. I'm not good at yoga, therefore I should not be teaching it. These are the first things that come out of people's mouths. And so in the foundations program, what I try to tell people, it's really more about you. It's about your intersection with your life. And are you walking this walk? Because yoga is a lifestyle that teaches you that it's not just an hour in church service that you are a follower of Christ. It's in the way that you set up rhythms in your days, in your weeks, in your year. It's in the way that you combat all the distraction in your life. It's the way that you integrate and appreciate life. And so the foundations program, it's emotional. It's transformational. And what's been really powerful is that we've had people who were pastors who said, I've never taken anything like this that was this transformative in my own life, which is amazing to me. I had a woman who said, I'm not Christian. I'm actually born in India and moved here when I was 23, went to grad school at Pepperdine, and somehow took a class of Katie Pearson's, who taught alumni at Pepperdine, on a random whatever. She said, I went through 600 some emails, found Katie, and then she said, check out Living Soul Institute. And, she said, I just keep coming back feeling like this is the one, but I just want you to know I'm not a Christian. And she had an incredible experience. It was really beautiful. So I love that we're able to create a safe place for people who are anywhere on the spectrum in their faith walk. A lot of people just not knowing where everything stands, based upon a really traumatic event in their life, or based upon their maybe evangelical upbringing not upholding where they are today and what they're dealing with today. And so I'm really I wish everybody could take this teacher training. I wish everybody in the world, because I feel like it's a safe place to do a little unraveling and, letting God really kind of knit you back together in the yoking that we talk about in the training. So we always say in the 200 hour, don't worry about the big picture. Just get to the starting line. And something I'm really proud of with Living Souls 200 hour is that all of our teachers are audition ready at the end of their teacher training. They can teach an entire 60-minute sequence from beginning to end. They can weave a theme, and they can show up completely as they are. It's not a bunch of minions. It is like you be you. And it blows me away. Each and every teacher showcase we do, we call it that instead of a test out. It's just nicer. And it's been incredible. So the 300 hour is just that. It's advanced. It's advancing your servant leadership capacity. It's about stepping deeper into the calling. We go a lot into trauma and trauma sensitive yoga. We talk about working one-on-one with clients, which is often a scary step for somebody who teaches group practices. We just don't feel like we know enough. But we get people to understand that sometimes it's just your presence that is enough, right? And also being somebody who just sees people and can listen well to their pain stories. And it's profound. So we do a lot of that. Breath of Life, we have modules. So you do it kind of like every 5 weeks, take a break and then switch on to the next one. The big New Year one and the 300 hours is all about sacred rhythms. It's all about looking through the lens of work and rest. What's a rule of life or a way that you want to organize your days and your years so that you're steeped in meaning. We look at Ayurveda, which is the sister science of yoga, and it's so powerful to recognize our toxic load. And that's not just in what we eat, which is part of it, but it's the toxic load of relationship. It's the toxic load of technology and the impact of distraction. And it's the toxic load of pollutants, of taking care of everybody else, but not ourselves in so many ways. And so it's powerful. We have kids yoga and yin yoga and chair yoga, soul strength, which is our yoga with weights. We do energy and chakras and the armor of God. We talk about the Enneagram as well, because I'm for our leadership development course, I'm an Enneagram coach. And that's a helpful breakthrough for so many leaders to look at, why do people do the things they do? And how can I hold space for people? How do I stay at the table? We always say, how can I be somebody who stays at the table?
Okay. Can I just come to Colorado and stay for about a half a year and soak and steep into
You can do it online.
It doesn't sound like work. It doesn't sound like work. It doesn't sound like the teacher trainings that I took. So, yeah. Woo, that's yummy. That's so yummy.
And I think the thing that really sets it apart is it's not just information, right? It's the integration through practices and meditations with each module that we do, but also you leave with so many resources for teaching. The last thing when people graduate the 300 hour, like, I could teach for 20 years on the content that I have in all of the manuals of each module. And the amazing thing is that that came out of me in 1 year. I wrote 8 modules, and each manual's 40 pages or more. Like, yeah, 40
wow.
to 80 pages. And it was just life experience and thinking someday when I get to do this, this is how I want to do it.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kristin, for all of that work and effort and love that you poured out, right? And that you get to see now. You get to see that it gets poured out into other vessels, right? And it's the domino effect. I love to hear about it. I love to see it, right? All of us do. So, speaking of your Enneagram, I want you to tell our listeners what the Enneagram Motions of Soul practitioner is, and why would someone want to discover it and become a practitioner?
Yeah, because some approaches to the Enneagram, which is an ancient typology, um, and helps you understand a little bit more of how you tick or why you do the things you do, as I was saying. Some of the approaches is you get a number, you get a wing, and that basically becomes your excuse. In some trainings, I've heard them say it can become your sword or your shield, right? I do that because I'm a 9, or I am this way because of this. So when I learned about, I had read Spiritual Rhythms for the Enneagram by Claire and Scott Lowridge and Adele and Doug Calhoun. You know, Adele from, what does she write? Help me. Spiritual Disciplines Handbook and Invitations from God. I looked into their training because the harmony model was so yogic to me, in that they say that, yes, you have a dominant style or dominant point that you're standing in, but each of these 9 numbers reflects a different aspect of the character of God. So with 1s, it's the goodness of God. 2, the love of God. 3, the efficiency or effectiveness of God. 4, the authenticity of God. 5, the wisdom of God. 6, the loyalty of God. 7, the joy of God. 8, the justice of God. And 9, the peace of God. And so when we look at that, we can look at any other number, which may be challenging to our lens, and say, that is good, right? And so we aren't just a number. We're actually made of intellectual intelligence, which is the head, emotional intelligence, which is the HQ or the heart, and gut intelligence, which is kind of the intuition. And so when you look at it from a Trinitarian perspective, you can say that the IQ is the Father, and the EQ, the emotional center, is the heart center, is Jesus, and the GQ is the Holy Spirit. And for me, this has been crucial to me as a 9 on the Enneagram, because forever I am a peacemaker. I'm a middle child. I think it's nature and nurture that made me a 9. But often I have also been a peacekeeper. They say 9s double down in their nervous system, not only to keep the peace within, but to manage the peace around them so their peace is not disturbed, right? And so for years, I was the wingman to everybody else's mission. And it was just because it was easier, not because I wasn't equipped or able to lead people. It was just easier to not have to put myself out there. And it felt very vulnerable, actually. So stepping into my harmony really is a representative of me even stepping into my role with Living Soul and really trusting that God could use me. And that is, trusting in my 3, which is now what I'm leading with. And I write a mantra, and it says confident, and in parentheses, wholly confident, confident. And my 6, which is my IQ, bridge builder. And I feel like I'm doing that between the believer and the seeker, between, the worlds that I've lived in order to bring people together in a world that's so divisive, and harmonizes, which is just my natural ability to lead from a place of peace. And so the harmony model is so incredible. I did my Enneagram training with Crossroads Soul Resources. And then because I loved it so much, I brought my daughter. And now it's a thing that we just do as a family. My daughters, I have 3 of them, are all going through Enneagram training as well. My oldest did it, and she's going to be a counselor, and it was just a really like powerful thing for a mom and daughter to do together. And then I also completed the 2-year spiritual direction program with Crossroads. And yeah, even in spiritual direction, when I'm working one-on-one with people, a lot of the dismissed pieces of ourselves, if we are very emotional beings, we don't turn on our head or our gut, right? And so it leads to really beautiful questions when you hear people's story and you understand the lens that they're seeing through, to really ask the Holy Spirit, like, for a beautiful question that leads them to more breakthrough. And that's why I teach it in our 300-hour program.
That's a lot more than I expected, and I can definitely appreciate it. And I have 3 girls as well. So, yeah, that's spectacular. That's interesting stuff. I'm sure you'll see me getting that one here soon. Wow, that's amazing. So if you had a superpower, what would it be?
You know, the number one thing I thought of, and I think this is such a controlling thing to say, I was like, is there a crystal ball? Like, is that a superpower, or is that just a prop?
Right.
You know? So is the question, what would I choose in a superpower?
Right. If you could have one, what would you choose?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I think it would just be something that had to do with boldness.
Mm.
I've always felt just a bit on the timid side. So maybe there something that would kind of allow me to live like it was my very last day, before I enter heaven. I often think about that, actually. Like, what would my old self say to me that would make me uninhibited today?
That's a great question. Wow. Okay. 3 books that you recommend the listeners to read.
Oh gosh, there's so many. Well, I'm going to toot my own, well, not my own horn. I haven't written a book yet. That's on my life list. We require in both our 200-hour and 300-hour for everybody to read The Yamas and Niyamas by Deborah Adele. It's a game changer. It's such a beautiful book, and it's what we designed the Unity study around, because again, it helps you look at why you've developed this lens from which you see life and people and victimhood and all the things, right? And it's really about building empathy and compassion. And I really feel like those are 2 really important characteristics of Jesus. So Yamas and Yamas by Deborah Adele. Great book for anybody, yogi or not. Gosh, there's so many. I just read 4 million in my spiritual direction training. Something I loved a couple summers ago, and we all read it as a family on the beach, was American Dirt. It's just about the story of immigrants, and some of them who have walked thousands of miles to find asylum and home, a home, a safe place. And my mom works with immigrants in the city of Chicago. and it's her life's work. And so for me, it really gave me a perspective of just what I have and the bigger call as a follower of Christ to really see the marginalized and the poor, and really think about, yes, it can feel overwhelming, but what can I do? What is like one thing that I can do? So that was great. And then, gosh, I wrote a million things down. I was really moved by the practice of the presence of God by Brother Lawrence. And just the simplicity of slowing, of being present. And I teach a lot about that, but it was convicting to sometimes I feel like I should be somewhere else than I am. Like I haven't done enough. I haven't been made something successful. Even with Living Soul, it's something I'm just like, why is this so hard some days? And he washed dishes and found, the presence and the love of God in the mundane. And I want to be more like that.
Oh my gosh, Kristin, I love that. I love that book. I cannot wait to have it piled on to my nightstand with all the other unread books. But it sounds amazing. Thanks for sharing the books that that you appreciate and that you share. I know that the listeners um, really relate to that and that they like that question. So thanks for that. Another question that I asked Katie Pearson, how many books do you have unread? Please make me feel like I'm not alone.
Well, I not only have books on my nightstand that just sit there, and I read multiple ones, at once, which is probably not best for actually completing the book, but I also have books on Hoopla and Audible, and I'm constantly going in between on walks, different books. So it's just, that's my love. I love learning, and so the pile's extensive. Let's just put it that way.
Yay, I'm not alone. Yes, I love learning too. Okay, so please tell my listeners how they can find you and what's new for Living Soul this year.
Yeah. Well, I would love for you to find Living Soul Institute. It's livingsoulinstitute.com. And we have a 200-hour yoga teacher training. We call it the Foundations Program. It's Yoga Alliance accredited, and it's also Christ-centered. The next spring training begins online February 16th, and you can take it fully online, or you can do what we call the hybrid training, where you come to either Tyler, Texas, or one of our teacher tune-ups around the country. Teacher tune-ups are great options for teachers looking for CEUs, or maybe you haven't been teaching a while. Maybe you just need some fresh content or some encouragement to step into a new season of teaching, or a new population that you want to teach. We have them all over the country. So you can check out the 200-hour teacher tune-ups, and our 300-hour program is really unique in that you can jump in at any module. We have it set up in modules because I've done 300-hour trainings that felt like fire hoses. And I really love the idea of kind of steeping in one subject at a time and really being able to bring it into your classes immediately. I think what distinguishes our 300-hour is just the amount of teaching resources. Like, you will have content to teach for years to come, and it's more than just the teaching. It's really a spiritual formation and leadership development program that is about a year long. It's incredible, and you'll meet the greatest friends ever. Like-hearted people. So, and then we have a September 2025 women's retreat. I'm about to make an announcement, but it hasn't quite gone out yet because I need to get the contract fully signed. But I'm excited to share that, and that is open to all. You don't have to be a yoga teacher to come to that. It's really more about a beautiful weekend away with God, doing what you love in nature, and practicing great yoga and being with great people. So that's coming, livingsoulinstitute.com.
Yay! Tell me about the teacher tune-ups. You have a few of those coming up this year too, right?
Yeah, we start in Denver at the end of January, and then we move to Cincinnati, which is January 31st, February 2nd, Peoria, Illinois, February 27th through March 2nd, Murrieta, California with Katie Pearson, which is March 14th through 16th, Tyler, Texas, where I'll be the April 6th through the 9th. And I think I got them. Oh, Victoria, BC, which will be happening with Callie Gillespie, one of our RYT 500s from Living Souls program. She's fabulous. So, yeah, if you're missing community, and I know that feeling, especially for those of you who, might be teachers in lone teachers in your area, it's a great way to get back into being inspired and to continue your calling.
Yes, I love that. I love the way that you structure it. And I love the 300 hour, you can jump in it however you want. That's very interesting. Kristin's, yours just sounds so interesting, And before I started interviewing yoga teachers, I just thought, well, you do your 200 hour, you do your 5 or 300 hour, and then you're done. What I've discovered is that the people that are offering the yoga teacher trainings, they have many 300 hours and many 200 hours. That's so freeing for me. So we all have something to give, right? And I love your offering, and you will see me. So anyway, friends, thank you so much for being here. I This is our round 2 of recording this because of Wi-Fi. So thank you for your patience and your love. And yeah, I can't wait to see you again. Not on the screen, but in person. Thanks, Kristin.
Blessings to you and all the soulful conversations you get to have, Tessa.
That's right.
Good
Thanks,
to be
Kristin.
with you. Thanks.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.